Good evening and welcome to Blue Dream Love and Wellness. Tonight, we are going to do a little discussion on boundaries. So I'm just going to bring it up right away. As we know, boundaries, everybody needs them. Not everybody utilizes them. Not everybody utilizes them. Oh boy, I might have to admit, there it goes. Doesn't always utilize them. Come on, correctly. There, it gave me a little trouble. So tonight, this is going to be me asking you questions, and we are going to learn some things. I learned a lot when it took me almost a month to put this together. There's so much stuff out there on boundaries, but it's about you getting deeper within yourself and learning about the different types of boundaries and where you need work at. So the first thing we're going to go right off, boundaries define what is and what is not people. Boundaries also protect us from the bad, and that can be taken in several relevances, whether it's skin, words, especially the word no, truth about who we are in ourselves, the times or the time frame in your life where people judge you geographically, emotionally, other people, consequences, and the behavior of others all push our boundary system. We ourselves are responsible for our feelings, our attitudes, our beliefs, our behaviors, our choices, our thoughts, our values, our limits, our talents, desires, and love, all that lay within our boundaries. But do we have all of these boundaries in check? So when somebody pushes us, we're not out of that boundary and they don't push us past the point. We don't ever want to go to somebody else's level because that is them. Don't let it be you. Don't let them pull you back down. The concept of boundaries comes from the divine himself. Boundaries allow us to care for ourselves and allow us to care for others in a very special form. Boundaries allow us freedom, which actually leads to love, because the more freedom we feel, the more able we are to produce those type of feelings. When our boundaries are pushed, we do not ever have those feelings. So boundaries are, like I said, define what is you and what is me. A boundary shows where someone ends, and if this makes sense, someone else begins. So it's leading each person to a sense of ownership of their own responsibility. These boundaries or fences need to have a gate. They cannot. They need to let the good in and let the bad out. Like I've said many times, and I'm sure you heard me say, do not serve them tea, get them out. Just like a homeowner has boundaries around their home, okay, we ourselves need boundaries around our emotional, mental, physical, and spiritual aspects. We need to have those in place. For out of love of ourselves, it helps us to distinguish what is our responsibility and what is not, because many times we take on more than what it should be. Does anybody agree with this? You do not have to let your life spiral out of control. So let me ask you these questions. You tell me what you think. If everybody wants to take their mute off and answer, that would be groovy. Can I set limits and still be a loving person? Is that a yes or a no?
Yes.
I think it depends on the other people involved.
Okay. Girls, what do you think?
Yes, I think so, but it may not be always perceived that way depending on the person that you're
Right,
gonna put the boundary with.
right, right. Yvonne, what-
Yeah, for me, I think the older I get, the more I don't mind setting my limits.
yes,
Like without feeling the need to be loved. So,
okay, good, that's good. The need to not having to be loved. Right, is that what you said?
exactly.
Beautiful. I like that. So how do you feel are these boundaries legitimate? Do you think they are? Yes or no? What do you think?
I don't understand the question, sorry.
Yeah.
Do you think that our boundaries that we've already formed, do you think they are legitimate?
Ah. For me, yes. I
Yes?
think so.
Okay. Does everybody feel that way?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, beautiful. So how, per se, I put this in there because everybody's on a digital phrase. How do I effectively manage my digital life so it doesn't control me? So many people you see now, you go out to restaurants, this is what they're doing. There's no boundary there. You walk into somebody's home and sit down to have a meal with people. They're doing this. At restaurants, they're doing this. Are they pursuing a boundary or are they letting the phone control their boundary? What do you think?
Well, I think we're definitely controlled by it.
Mhm.
I also notice a lot as I'm living by myself. I don't have as much boundaries on that as when I'm, for instance, I've just visited my family and I've been around other people.
Mhm.
Like, I think for me, it depends on the circumstances.
Okay.
And I definitely don't set as many boundaries around my digital life as I probably would with people.
Beautiful. Does anybody else want to share?
I think there's like a lot of different ways you could do that. Like, I think you need to set a boundary with your phone in a weird way so that it
Yes.
doesn't consume all of your time and energy.
Mhm.
And also setting a boundary with others and asking them to be, attentive and aware to what you're saying,
Amen.
present with you when you're having time or, out to dinner with the partner or whatever. Like,
Right.
a lot of ways that boundaries need to be more implemented with our phones and with the internet and stuff. Absolutely.
Amen. Yes, it does. There does. Okay. What if someone is upset and hurt by your boundaries? Does that bother you? Or does
Yeah.
that show you, that they see something in themselves that they need to work on? What do you think?
There has to be respect
I was
Amen.
on
thinking the
both
same thing,
parties.
but
And remember, when we're friends and we do have boundaries with each other, we go back and forth. I don't think friends try to hurt one another exponentially, but we can, but not meaning to. We need to think before we speak. So I do believe that boundaries are very important. But if people are hurt by those boundaries, again, respect. Okay, so how do I answer someone who wants my time, my love, and my energy, or my money? Are they respecting your boundaries if this is what they ask all the time? Are you allowing the boundaries to be drawn, or are you allowing that to be open and it not be closed? What do you think?
I mean, for me personally, it comes in waves. Sometimes
Okay.
it feels easier, and sometimes it doesn't feel as easy, but I still try to do it. Like,
Amen.
I often, like, I first feel like a trigger, like somebody pushed my boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't notice it as a boundary, just feel like something is too much. And then I just need to get through that emotion before I take a response. And then I see and feel like, how do I feel now? Like after like
Right,
10 deep
right.
breaths, you know, it's like,
Right.
and then first actually check, am I triggered with something that's not healthy, or is it healthy to say no? Like I'm trying to first go through my emotional response myself and then see what do I want to do from there.
That is very good. Most people don't take the time to do that, Yvonne. That's beautiful. Okay,
Oh, I
so
don't always do it, you know, like this is
I understand
this is the
that.
case.
So
Think
let me
it's-
ask another question. Why do I feel guilty or afraid when I consider setting boundaries? Are you afraid when you set boundaries?
I don't know.
Yes, because
Yes.
it wasn't normalized or present growing up for me in my home and my family. Like there were never boundaries set. There was never any of that, any respect for people's privacy or nothing. Very enmeshed and very codependent. I
Mhm.
very codependent family. So I've had a really difficult time setting boundaries and navigating that, especially with my family members.
No, that's something that we need to work on and improve because family
Yes.
members can be the worst, unfortunately.
It's horrible.
It is. It is. So how do boundaries relate to mutual submission within a marriage?
Have to be able to exercise compromise.
Yeah. Amen.
I'm not married, so
I get two
Remember,
jobs, that's it.
remember that in our everyday lives, we are obliged to take care of certain things within our lives. We must advance in our work lives. We must progress in our social lives. But there's also a variety of aches, so to speak, is what I called it, and pains forced upon us as we constantly are concerned about our physical well-being. There's so much pressure on us nowadays. So with a litany of concerns, it can be really difficult to work on our spiritual beings, our spiritual lives. But if we work on that spiritual part, we focus on nurturing ourselves, our soul, and our spirit. So our boundaries selfish? Not in any way, shape, or form. Let's learn how to do it. So there's a lot of information here. So I'm hoping it's not too much. Trying harder, being nicer, and taking responsibilities for others does not make our lives better. It actually harms us. So boundaries are like a property line, like I said at first, and their purpose is to keep us to know when we are responsible for and what we are not responsible for. So many things we take on responsibility for. It's not for us to take on. The functions of an actual boundary are to keep good in, evil out. It acts as an alarm system for us. When one of our boundaries get pushed, usually our stomach will be the first to tell us, the hairs on the back of our neck, our fingers will tingle, our lips will tingle, and our body will start to moisten as our breath starts speeding up. That's when you shake it off. You take a breath. You do the round breathing where you breathe into 6, hold it to 6, breathe out to 6, hold it to 6, do that 3 times, and then speak if you need to speak. If you need to turn around and walk away, that's what you do. If you don't ever want to go down to somebody else's level of them pushing, once you do that enough, they'll know that you're not going to play this game with them anymore. So examples, because there's so many examples of boundaries. Like I said before, our skin, our body, our words, truth. People don't like to hear truth. Geographical distance. People don't understand that. Some time, emotional distance, and so many other people push our boundaries every single day. So there's 3 treasures referred to as FAB that I found about this: feelings, attitudes, and that also includes our convictions, our beliefs, our core beliefs, our doctrine that we were raised with, in our reality. But is it a perception of a reality we're living in, or is it a perception of something else we need to step out and look in? Or are we still in the perception of the past, or are we looking too far in the future? What about right now, this minute? Let's work on that. So we need to work on our behavior. So examples of boundaries. I don't know if anybody ever does this, but I journal a lot. I prioritize the stuff that keeps me happy and add to it every day, no matter how small or minuscule it may be. You may not think something is happy or worth thought, but it is. The more you write in the journal, the more you see, the more negative is not there, and there's just positive. You do that and keep doing that. That is going to change that subconscious. So if you've got calls coming in all the time, let them go to voicemail. Don't answer them. Say no respectively. If somebody pushes you, you say no again. And if you keep getting pushed, that means you're being triggered, and we need to work on those triggers and build you up and work with positive affirmations. Listen to some binary beats and some positive affirmations to change that and to take the negative away. Remember, if something is making you uncomfortable, let them know. And I know how difficult it is. Take a mental health day. We all deserve that. Why do we need boundaries? Because people push us. People don't respect. And we need that for our personal sake. Who or what do I feel responsible to, or what do I feel responsible for? Who do you? Who do you need to be responsible for? Yourself, right? Why should we be responsible for others unless they're our children, unless they're growing? Then we need to be responsible for us. Who are we responsible to? Us, to the divine. What are the healthy boundaries in my life? Does everybody have healthy boundaries? At least one or two or three?
Try.
You want to share what you have?
I'll have to think about it.
Okay.
I have some. Nothing's coming to mind right now, though.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else want to share a healthy boundary?
Well, as Clint Eastwood said, man has to know his limitations. So you have to know how far you can go to accomplish things without running over somebody or running yourself into the ground.
Yeah, exactly. Well said. Thank you. So you have to think about and write down, when you're journaling, write down what your healthy boundaries are and expand on them. If you don't feel aligned with them, let's remove the imbalances and make you aligned. What are your unhealthy boundaries? And there can be so many. So we can have what's called rigid boundaries. Rigid boundaries makes us kind of avoidance of intimacy or other relationships, unlikely to ask for help, have very few close friends, and you're very protective, even detached. Now, porous boundaries, as we know, you can wax or wane, right? So you overshare. You cannot say no to anybody. You're dependent on what other people think of you, not what you think of yourself. It's about you. Remember, the Lord doesn't make crap. He makes us all beautiful, and we're worthy. Now, there are healthy boundaries, and these are the ones we strive for value, our own opinions, for don't ever compromise your values for somebody else. You share your personal information in the correct way. There's many things in many parts of our boundaries, whether it's money, whether it's work, whether it's family, whether it's emotional boundaries, sexuality boundaries. There's so many boundaries that can get crossed. So this is what I found about scriptures, just to share, not to preach. Proverbs 4:23, keep your heart with all vigilance, for from it flow the spring of life. Proverbs again 22:3, a prudent man seeth the evil and hideth himself, but a simple man pass on and are punished. Matthew 7:7-12, if we do not take care of ourselves, someone else will be forced to, or we will die. Matthew 22:37-39, thou shalt love the Lord with all thy heart and all thy soul, with all thy mind. And Galatians, carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ. In what we develop healthy boundaries, we can act the same way that Christ does for caring for other people. Sometimes people care for other people's and push your boundaries for the simple fact as they want your attention because they don't have the strength to stand on their own. And in weaknesses, we do need others, and we do need communities to help hold us up. That's what it's about. But remember, respect yourself, honor and love yourself in humility and grace. Okay. A lack of variety produces a variety of bad fruit, which we all know. So these show up in three main areas of our life. Clinical symptoms include depression, resentment, rage, anger, obsessive and compulsive behaviors, and they can be minuscule and they can be humongous on that. So relational symptoms stem actually from what, through everything I read, from a sense of the loss of freedom within themselves and the loss of love that they did not ever receive, so they don't have that boundary. Functional symptoms include the inability to actually complete a goal or a task, extreme disorganization, low energy level, and problems of concentration. Now, this can also mean that we need to change the diet also, because remember, when we eat proper foods, it also changes our dopamine, our serotonin, and different levels within our body, and feeds our brain and feeds our gut microbiome. Remember, if our gut microbiome's not happy, our body's not going to be happy. And when we're not set in our boundaries, that's going to churn that microbiome. So it all is connected. There are no coincidences. So this is what I think. Tell me what you think. One reason I think people have difficulty in admitting they have a problem within boundaries in their lives is, one of the symptoms I struggle with is I'm often controlled by my family. Okay. So when I discovered or confronted the problem within my life, the typical way I handled it at first was to blame. But I'd have to look in the mirror because I'm silly enough and kept playing back. Shut that door, be done with it, and leave. It feels a lot better. So we make excuses, we avoid it, we deny it's even real, we make very little about it, we rationalize a reason for it, we deal with it, we just blow it off. So how would you like to confront your problem with boundaries? Have you ever thought of that? You ever thought how you were going to move forward and make these boundaries sturdy? David, you made your boundaries really hard when you were a DI. So how did you have those kids have boundaries, or did they not allow to have boundaries?
Well, they had boundaries.
Your boundaries though.
my boundaries, but my boundaries were set forth in my training to train them to be physically fit, basically trained, morally justifiable individuals. And you're talking about taking 80, 18 to 24-year-olds every 13 weeks from everywhere east of the Mississippi.
Right.
So they had to understand that there was one rule of the golden rule, that you obey the rules. So their boundaries were, if they broke the boundaries, there was punishment. And nobody likes punishment. But when they did well, the senior drill instructor would reward them with maybe 5 more minutes in the shower,
Mhm.
get to brush their teeth an extra time during the day, which helped all of us really, but
Right. Right. I
Little-
understand.
longer meal time, a little bit going on their free time, maybe 10 or 15 minutes early, kicking all the drill instructors out and letting them big dad them. But they had those boundaries. And once they learned that there was either reward or punishment, it's kind of
They
like
took the
Pavlov's
reward.
dogs.
Right.
Sorry, didn't mean to drag on.
That's right. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. So when you have boundary problems, and as we're talking, you'll understand where yours are. It'll feel, it'll tug, it'll come to you. I have trouble with this. I struggle with this. And let's get them worked on. Let's get them set, because if they're problems, it's best to meet it head on, and we learn and we grow from it. So is there anything in this list, because I made up a lot, that actually presently experience or have recently experienced in your life? Worrying, anxiety, feeling defeated or left out, loss of temper or anger, being disorganized, being overwhelmed, high blood pressure, which can cause headaches, being envious of someone else, inability to get things done, ulcers, depression, fatigue, inability to concentrate, eating or drinking too much, and it can be also too little, crying spells, development of allergies all of a sudden, feeling sorry for yourself, procrastinating, feeling trapped, overweight, underweight, and it can just go on and on. Relationship symptoms, when you help yourself and helping each person figure out where one person in and the other begins, it will help you to understand and accept that inner child and allow that inner child to grow, because that also needs worked on. Your core will need worked on to bring all of these things together for you can stay where you need to be. Working on your level of consciousness to make sure you're always vibrating in a high level, making sure your life force is where it needs to be. There's so much involved with this. Remember, there can be discordant energies, there can be trauma energies, there can be a lot involved, and you have to go back all the way. And sometimes it's even stuff that we've inherited. So functional boundaries, there are external and internal. External allows us to choose our distance from each person and enables us to give or refuse permission to touch us. Nobody has that right. Now, internal boundaries protects our thinking, our feelings, and our behaviors, and it keeps them functional. So one thing, if we have time tonight, I want to do a little meditation and see if I can get you to envision a rose that is around an aura. Let's see if we have time here. Now, these laws, I thought kind of played heed to what we're doing tonight. I didn't realize there was so many laws when it comes to boundaries. The laws of sowing and reaping. We are personally responsible for our own actions and concerns or consequences of those actions. Yes, we are. And many times People will not take on that they personally did this or they blame everybody else. Remember to always step back, look in the perspective, and see if you can see what's really going on. If you have a trigger, if a word triggers, a sentence triggers, you know that that's what it is. So law 2 is responsible for and to. We are responsible for our own feelings and actions and our behavior. So when we take responsibility for someone else, we keep them in an immature state. So they need to take on their own selves, and we need to step back and let them do so. Law 3, the power of power and powerlessness. And this gets used often. We cannot change anybody else, but we can change ourselves with the divine's help, with our wanting to change, our seeing that we need to change and grow. And even though growing and changing is difficult, once you get through it, it's really beautiful. Just know that we're here to hold you up. That's what we're here for. So the law of receiving others' boundaries, we need to learn to hear other people's boundaries. Some people don't actually say no, and sometimes we just don't hear it if they do say no. So we need to learn to respect that. The law of motivation. Boundaries help us gain control of our own and fulfill what we have created ourselves. Unconditional love. And sometimes people really struggle with unconditional love of themselves. Do every single one of you love yourselves unconditionally? Every single thing about you, unconditionally.
Honestly, I'm getting there.
Oh, yay!
Thank you.
That's awesome. All right. Yeah, I love that. So when we have the proper motivation within our lives and we express the freedom and the responsibility, it is enamoring. It is glorious. And you can see that light. It comes up brighter, 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 brighter. And poof, it's spilling out the top of your head and going all over you. And when you walk around, people notice that light. That's what you want. So I put in here the serenity prayer. Divine, give us the grace to accept with serenity the things that we cannot be changed, courage to change the things we should be changed, and the wisdom to know the difference. I changed it a little bit. Hope he doesn't mind. So law 6, I couldn't believe there were this many laws. The law of evolution. So what is the law between harm and hurt? It's different, isn't it? In what ways does pain help you grow? Have you ever thought about that? Sometimes we're so focused on the pain, that's all we can think of. But do you actually think what it's getting you to, or why you're sick in the first place? I've been checked many times these last 3 years about why I'm what I am. So believe me, listen to your pain. The best relationships are those in which we hurt each other by our no more, no. We stay connected because we give the other person grace, humility, forgiveness. But we have to experience, what have you experienced this type of relationship where you have to do this back and forth, back and forth, back and forth? That's love. So remember, just because someone is screaming or crying, that doesn't mean something bad is occurring. They just may need you to hear, to be there. You know, when we have a community, we hold each other up when we're celebrating. And when we're having a hard time, we hold you up then too. That's what it's about. Growing in grace, growing with unconditional love for each person, for each soul. Okay, the law of proactive versus reactive. Many of us have this. When we define, I wrote out, define the difference between reactive and proactive. In which situations or relationships are you reactive in? Write that down. What are you reactive in? And what situations are you proactive in? Do you ignore your intuition? Do you once you ignore it and you let it occur, does it zap, take away your energy? Does it feel like 1,000 little tentacles has pulled everything away? So how can you move forward being more of a responder and not a reactor? So how you would find that out is everything that triggers you, every time it triggers you, have your paper and pen, jot that stuff down. And let's remove it. Let's find out what's underneath of it, why it triggered. It's going to take you to a wounded child. It's going to take you to a trauma energy. It's going to take you to a despair anchor. It's going to take you to a discordant energy. It's going to lead you in many directions. And there's going to be layers. But know that each layer you peel, the brighter you become. So the next one is the law of envy. So in what ways does envy affect your boundaries? Does it affect your boundaries? Does anybody want to share? If not, that's cool.
Inequitable division of work within the workplace and favoritism towards those that are not on the same performance level can cause a plethora of envy.
Yes, it can. Most definitely, especially in your job. Most definitely. So do you have, and if that made you feel anything, write that down. Do you have envy in your relationships, especially in family turmoil? How can you begin to find happiness in what you have and not in what you want? It's not about material things. It's about, do you have a roof over your head? Do you have food in your tummy? Clothes on your back? Are you doing something you love? Are you feeling peace about what you're doing? If you're not, then you need to find something you do feel peace about. There's so many ways we can look at envy. So the law of activity, do you find it easy or difficult to take ownership of something? And if so, why or why not?
Sin,
Mm-hmm.
going back to number 8, what Dave was saying, is that envy or is that disgust? Because I've been in that situation previously, and I've never been envy of the situation or the person or what's going on, but I've been disgusted with it.
In a matter of speaking, disgust, jealousy, it all kind of lays within there.
Well, I
But
never
in-
even looked at it as jealousy. I mean, I understand what Dave was saying, because again, I've been there, maybe not in the same situation as him,
Right.
but I understand it because I've experienced that to a certain extent. And I've never been envious of the person or the people involved. I've been disgusted with them or the situation or, what's going on, because I could obviously see that it's not equitable, it's not right. But again, I've always looked at envy as something a little different.
Well, everybody looks at everything different. Remember, we've all grown up with different ideas and different thoughts. So the law of activity, do you take ownership? Does everybody take ownership? Are you allowed to take your own ownership? Do you allow yourself to be vulnerable to take that ownership? In the Bible, it encourages us to be active in taking ownership and saying we're sorry and asking for forgiveness. But the biggest thing we knew is to forgive ourselves, to love ourselves. What is one thing you can do tonight to strengthen your boundaries? So the law of exposure. In what way do you actually make your boundaries evident in your communication with your boundaries? How do you communicate that? Do you have a verbiage that you utilize? Do you have a signal or a sign, or is there something that you are capable of doing, or you have not learned how to do that yet and we need to work on that? Or which one of these three signs do you struggle with the most? So I found these myths, and this is what I found when I muscle tested through all of them, the ones that hit the most. It says 8 common myths that a boundary setting person may encounter are identified and refuted. Now, some of them really bothered me, so I thought it was good. So when I say no or set a limit, I'm being selfish. There's a difference between being selfish and being self-centered. I'm being disobedient if I say no. We are accountable to God, not to people. If I set limits, I'm going to lose love or to be hurt, fear, or being abandoned. Yet living without boundaries usually means we aren't really connected to others anyway. If I set boundaries, I will hurt others. Boundaries are defensive tools and they protect us. Outward intention is very important. Boundaries mean I'm angry. No, boundaries actually make us less angry. When others set boundaries, it injures me. No, relationships that consist of a balance of togetherness and separateness, and in that order. Setting a boundary makes me feel guilty or bad. But they've done so much for me. I've got to do it for them. No. Love is a gift without a price tag or an IOU. And that's a hard one to learn for many. Boundaries are permanent, but boundaries are always open to change. Now, if that sets with anybody, write down your own, grow with it, rewrite it, change it around, and let's work on it. So identify these sicknesses came up. I found there was just so much information. Identify sickness, a need to admit you have a problem before you get help. Most time people don't do that. Connection, a need to be in a relationship with the divine or others. Identify needs, admit to unmet needs in your life. So connection, separateness, our boundaries, again, resolve the good or bad split or adulthood. There's always going to be that inner part that we always have. Receive the good, accept the grace of the divine, and incarnate it into people. Roots or grief, avoid the repetition of compulsion. Forgiveness, accept divine forgiveness and turn it into being able to forgive yourself and others, because we struggle with that. We really do. I find that a lot. Ownership, accept and know that you can take on the responsibility for your own feelings, for your own thoughts, your own attitude, your own behaviors. Nobody has any right to judge. We are fallible. We have our own. We are us, and we need to be safe to be us. We should not ever judge. When confronting your failure, what you feel your failure, to build up your boundaries for you can get those set, we'll begin on a process again as you move forward in recovery, because the more layers you peel, the more you'll see, the more hurdles. And you're thinking, wow, this road cannot get any wider. But yes, it can, because the more you grow, you're going to get more humps. You're going to get more things to clear. But once you get through, you can see that light. All you want to do is grow faster, and you'll want to. You'll need to. You will crave it. So this went over the identity sicknesses a little bit more. If you want me to go through them, the identity one, what is the first step of admitting we have a problem? So difficult. Sometimes, have you ever done mirror work where you've sat down and looked in the mirror and actually talked to yourself and asked yourself, actually looked in your eyes and asked these questions? It's very difficult at times. So when we admit it to ourselves and we know it's us saying it, not somebody else, then we can take care of it. What is one problem that you struggle with right now? What is one problem that you need help with? Write it down. Connect. How would you describe a warm community of faith? Do you have one? Do you have people around you? When you have experienced this kind of community, have you? What happened in your life? Was it a good experience? Do you need to find a community that helps you come together with this? Identify your needs. What part or what is one of your unmet needs? Do you have an unmet need? Excuse me. Describe yourself by completing these two phrases. I am what? What do you identify with? Write it down. I am what? Have you ever thought of that? What are you? Are you a husband, a wife, an aunt, a sister, a brother, an uncle? What is your trade? You do this, 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 this. What else are you? Have you ever sat down and actually done that? No, never? Sit down and write. What do others think I am? Amen. I am enough. Amen. Elena just shared that. Amen. Receive the good. Have you ever wrote down your gifts? I am sure we all have many gifts that we don't even realize is a gift. Does anybody want to share one of their gifts? What brings good things into your life? Why is it difficult, or is it difficult for you to accept good things in your life? Does anybody struggle with that?
Well, I was always taught that it is better to give than receive,
Mm-hmm. Yes, I was.
which makes it hard to be a receiver.
Yes, it is. It is hard to be a receiver, especially when you're used to giving all the time. That is. So root and grieve. What do you need to let go of? I mean, I want you to really think about it. What do you need to let go of? What grieves you every day? What flashes across your brain every day that just eats you up? What can you not let go of? Let that yoke off your shoulders and let it be free. Write it down. Let's get rid of it. Why are you afraid to let it go? Do you think it's going to hurt you to let it go or hurt them? It will heal you. How can you grieve your losses in healthy ways? A community, your friends, praying, yoga. There's so many things. Getting a Reiki session, get an emotion code and body code session, an acupuncture session, massage. There's so many things we can do. So ownership. Okay, we went through ownership, right? Treasures. What treasures do you own? What do you consider a treasure? Is it material things? Everybody treasures different things. What do you treasure? What else do you today, problems, situations, or your history that you are treasuring and not cutting the cord on, and it's following you around and you're in a loop? I'm sure we felt like that before. How can you actually let go of that responsibility to carry it? What would it feel like if it was off your back? Would you be able to roll your neck easier? Would you be able to move your shoulders? What would it feel like if you let it go? Sometimes that's really hard. So saying no to the bad. Whom in your life are unsafe people? Who are those people that really bring you those triggers and that pain? Who do you need to get rid of? And I know it's hard. Who do you need to practice saying no to? A safe person that knows that that's what you're doing before you can say it to the person you really need to say it to. Practice in front of the mirror. Write yourself a script if you have to. Practice. The braver you get, the more you say it, the more repetition you will be able to do this. So as we go through all of these things, you have the handout here, there's more steps. The hardest one is, what is the purpose of failure? We all have to fail to succeed. And we may take 10 steps forward and 5 back. But don't focus on the 5 back. Focus on the 10 forward. If you're having a hard time focusing, remember to journal. Look around you. Touch, smell, eat. Remember, there's more blessings. Uh-oh, my thing froze. There it goes. Understand the divine's grace is an important aspect of the recovery process. So which definition fits your life experience? Why? Something said before meals. Does anybody pray before their meals? Bless their vehicles before they go out. Bless their health. Ground and shield their house. Courtesy instead of punishment. A name undeserved gift. Have you ever just sent a gift and not told anybody why you sent it? Don't put your name on it either. Something we all need that ballet dancers have, and that's grace. We all need a little more grace in our lives. We need to overlook our faults. We all have them. They're there for a reason. Don't get hung up on them. You're beautiful just like you are. At times in our lives, we don't feel that we get what we deserve. But if we are harboring resentment or hatred, all those negative things in our lives, how can we get what we deserve if we can't focus on the positive and manifest that beauty? Put it in a full court of atonement. So right now, rank your problems. Rank them in order. Do you have trouble with self-confidence, finances, spouse, secrets, job, compulsive behaviors. And this works also for people that have split personalities. This also works. But remember, when you work with split personalities, you want to work with the lower one first. You need to find out how many are in there, and you need to work with the ones that are below 20 in their LOC and remove that person, and you can literally remove them. So also you can work with anxiety, depression, and memories. Now, if anybody has any questions or anything, just please say something. You can also identify a boundary problem in your life. Has anybody ever really thought, I have this boundary problem? Did you just think it was you or something you learned? Did you really stop and think there was a boundary problem? Do you really think about that? So what are the steps to recovery? What do you need to do to continue moving forward to get these boundaries set? What do you feel you need? So one of the biggest things, and I cannot tell you this enough, is to concentrate on forgiveness, to make up a forgiveness list. A lot of people think I'm crazy with as many times as I tell them to journal. You get that business out of there, especially before you go to bed. It helps you sleep. You do it in the morning to see what you're grateful for. It really does help set your mood for the day. Instead of focusing on the negative, focus on that beauty and that positive, the sun coming through the window. You know, your two eyes got to pop that day. Your feet hit the floor. A lot of people can't even be positive for that. So be positive and grateful. Write your emotions and feelings out, because the more you write them and the more you see what you're feeling and what triggered it, the more you can overcome those boundaries, those issues. And then you can write down what you want to occur and allow that to happen. Manifest it. Do it. You can do it. So example, act, and thoughts. This is what I came up with. My father beat me when I was a child. I was angry. I was bad. I was confused, and I was scared. So there's the reason, my act, my feelings, and my thoughts. So I try to control my kids with threats and anger. So they would feel angry, bad, worthless, etc., etc. So you understand that. So if you can do that for yourself, so you can see the reason, see what the action feelings are and the thoughts involved, and then start working on each aspect. And it will take you back again to a wounded child. Make sure you're ready to work on that wounded child. If your wounded child hasn't greeted you at where you are, then you're not quite ready to do some of it, but you can do the majority of it. So these are external resistance sources that I found. Guilt is common for someone to try to make us feel guilty about saying no or setting a limit. Don't ever feel guilty. Nobody has any reason to judge. Anger, we will get that. A natural outcome of beginning the boundary process is people will be angry, but we need the connections with the divine to handle this. And we need our community, and we must actively set limits to do so. Counter moves or consequences. You will get those from people. I will do that, or I will do this. You know, you do this, I'll do this, whatever the scenario may be. And I'm sure you've already come across that in your life. So physical, use available resources to deal with it, to empower, to confront it. Do not be subdued into submission and letting somebody push that boundary. The pain of others, whether it's real or whether they think they're entitled, it's a big difference. Others' pain can actually cloud our judgment. Step back, look in, Don't allow it to control you. I know that's easy for me to say. Sometimes it is very, very difficult to do. So remember, we have to think about our motives and their pain and our own behavior. There's so much involved in each aspect, our real needs. We have limited resources. Always remember that. But if we can meet our needs, we are able to actually meet others' needs. The more we learn about holistic lifestyle and crystals and herbs and supplements, et cetera, about the different modalities, the more it ingratiates us to grow and to help others and to help ourselves. So your unmet needs, and we all have those. We need to take ownership for those. And we need to allow ourselves some time. What do you do for yourself? What do you do for self-care every single day? You need to have at least 10 to 15 minutes of self-care every day. It helps you to move forward with healthy relationships with other people. It gives you that peace. So unresolved grief. It is very hard to make right choices at times, but when we experience loss or grief, actually identify why we're feeling it, what we're feeling, and work through it instead of letting it stay there and vibrate and cause lung damage. Allow it to go away, work with it. When we have internal fear or anger, remember, a lot of anger is spurred by resentment and hatred. And anger, one of the big things is people have fear, total unadulterated fear. Fear is just going to eat your body up alive, and it's going to imbalance your kidneys. So remember, many people have fear of what's going to happen tomorrow. Why don't we just deal with today and tomorrow will take care of itself? Why worry about that? Why worry at all? I know that's easy to say too, but if we take care of this very minute, that's all we can take care of. We don't control anything, in a matter of speaking. The biggest thing is to forgive others and forgive yourself. External focus, blaming someone else instead of accepting that personal responsibility. That is what keeps you trapped. So what is that responsibility that you feel that is keeping you trapped? Can you identify it? Do you know what age it came up? Did it come up when you were a child? So abandonment. And many of us have been through so many severe home life and trauma. So abandonment issues come up every single time. So it's always a fear of someone leaving us. And sometimes we may even feel that our spirit or our physical body has left us. Just call it back. It'll come back. So what external resistance do you experience most often? Journal that down. What are you actually feeling? Do you feel resistance all the time? Do you feel resistance, say, like your physical boundaries? Do you have resistance with your physical boundaries? Do you have personal space boundaries or physical touch boundaries that is external that you don't like? Do you have intellectual boundaries where you have ideas and you can't allow them to flow? You just can't get it to go. How do you deal with that? How are you dealing with that right now? So what internal resistance do you experience most right now at this point in time? Do you have emotional, intellectual, physical, mental aspects to your life that you're not dealing with? Are you feeling everybody else's emotions and not your own because you're clouded by everybody else's? How are you going to deal with that? How are you dealing with that? What is one barrier that you can overcome. Write down one thing that you want to start with, one thing. It can be a material thing, whatever you need, whatever you need. Time boundaries. You give yourself this much time to do this. You know, you give yourself 15 minutes a day, give yourself a time boundary. So what will it take, or do you need to take this step? Is it to let go of fear, to let go of guilt? What do you need to let go of? It's okay. What is the worst thing that could happen if you face this barrier? Have you ever asked yourself that? Sometimes we don't like to ask ourselves the hard questions. We don't even like to answer them either. So these are some of the things that I found that people hold that stop our boundaries. Resentment, that is a huge one. Join the family. Family, just because they're blood doesn't mean we need to let them hurt us anymore. Look for a change of taste. Do we need more sweetness in our life? What do we need? Begin treasuring our small little treasures and add to your treasure chest. Make your picture as beautiful and as bright and as brilliant as you are and as your aura is. Baby knows. To people you feel safe talking to and saying it to, and then take it to the next step. Rejoicing in guilt that you recognize that you actually had felt guilty for this when you didn't need to. Remember, those grown-up knows they will be hard at first. It will become easier. Leave other people's boundaries alone and love them for it. Remember that a free no leads to a free yes. Mature boundaries, not little ones, mature ones, in service of others. So actually reflect on your boundary itself. Reflect on the relationships. Think of the people and write them down. Whose relationship are you having struggle with? Who pushes your boundary? Can you think of people who push your boundaries? Any people? Write their names down. What situation did you encounter with them where they pushed your boundary? Where did it make you feel the imbalance? Did it feel in your stomach? Did it make your heart beat? Did it make you feel anger? Did it make you feel fear? What did it make you feel? If you gave it a color, would it be red hot? Or would it be white? So write down the following: the boundary I set. So think of one of these persons, write down your boundaries. The boundary I set is, and then write with whom, the barrier you faced, the help you received, the outcome you will get, the new boundary you actually want to set with them and set to this boundary. Remember, it takes baby steps to move into this. But once you move into it fully and graciously with humility and pride, you will be so pleased. You will see a big difference. Please continue to journal. You probably think, oh, all this journaling, I'm not going to do it. But journaling really makes a huge difference. It is a tool that you can free write. You never judge anything. Just be free. Allow it to move you. Just noodle, whatever. Don't judge. I mean, just noodle. Just get the words out. Get the thoughts out. It really helps before you go to bed. But if something is stopping you from doing it, what's stopping you? Are you afraid of what you may find out? It's kind of frightening at times, isn't it? We can all use a little peace at times. Okay. Thank you for being with me tonight with webinar 144 on boundaries. Does anybody have any questions? I went through that pretty fast, didn't I? Maybe not.
I have a question, or more so like, maybe I want some advice, I guess.
Sure, I'll try.
My twin sister, she has some depression, and my family and I kind of suspect that she might have borderline personality disorder. So that
Okay.
gives me of like her, like outbursts and insecurity and attachment problems, and she's just very negative and upset and mean and hateful.
Mm,
She's been like copying me and like mirroring me, and
mhm.
it feels threatening. She like flirts with my boyfriend, she steals my clothes, she tries to dress like me, talk like me.
Sounds like she's very jealous of you.
Yes, like she takes on my hobbies, my interests, things that
Mhm.
I say, she will repeat verbatim to someone else like it was her own thoughts and ideas. It's just, she started doing her makeup like me. Like I'm sure she's gonna dye her hair black soon. She's gonna just become, it's like she's wearing me as a mask or something. And it feels so threatening and
Mm,
unsafe. Like my identity and my sense of style and who I am, it doesn't matter. Like it took me my whole life to establish myself and my identity and my interests, my hobbies, and and for her to just kind of
mow
take it
you
away
over. Yes, yes. So was she
feels,
like this her whole life, or she just something
she's
switched?
she's been very mean and hateful her whole life. She has always kind of had behavioral issues. Um, she's
Were
been on
you
a
born
lot of
first?
she was born first.
She was
She's
born
29
first.
than me.
Hmm.
And we're identical twins. We already have the same face. I don't know why she's trying to take everything else. It just feels so bad. I
It
feel
does. It does. It sounds like she may
horrible.
even, I mean, you may want to hear that. It sounds like that she may have some offensive energies running through her. She definitely has some core things that need balanced. When
Um,
people are bipolar, their personalities are split. And so remember, you have to figure out how many she actually has, and you work with the lowest one first, and then you work your way up. And you have to be very careful, and you need to watch their eyes. Um, she needs to have boundaries off of, you need to sound boundaries with her, and that's going to be hard because she's courted to you in every way.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
something you need to work on with yourself. If you want to
yeah.
reach out for help, that's something we can work on. And
Okay, thank you.
um, holy cow.
Yeah, she in February she came into my room and demanded that I give her like my lamp that I've had for 10 years. And I said no. It's mine. I like it. I don't want to get rid of it. And I just kept saying no when she would argue and bicker about over this freaking lamp. And that went on for a while. And why do you act like you're better than me? I fucking hate you. You're so selfish. Excuse my language. Like she was just going off, and she pushed me out of the way and grabbed my lamp. I tried to take it back from her, and then she like attacked me. And
Mm.
so she put a lock on my door. And
Wow.
yes, and that upset her so badly. She was hysterical for weeks, screaming, crying, throwing stuff. Like, oh my God, I was so scared to come out of my bedroom for weeks. And I still have my lock though, but we're a little bit closer now. But I like my lock because that's a boundary that I've set.
Mhm. That's
And it's
good.
also like a visual reminder of like, this is my space. And
Mhm.
if I don't want you in here, you cannot come in here. Like my room is my safe space. All my treasures are in here.
Right.
Like, it means so much to me. I'm really having a hard time.
It sounds like it does sound like it. We need to work on that. We need to work with you because you can't, because of her age, she would have to give permission for us to work on her, and she's not going to do that. So what we
Yeah.
do is we work on you and how you deal with the situation for you learn to deal with it in a better perspective.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yvonne, you have anything to say? Anything to add?
No, it was very interesting. Nothing at the top of my head that I feel the need to clarify, or I will
Okay.
just digest it. And
Okay, good.
I've never felt boundary setting is my issue, but it's a nice reminder what else can be determined as a boundary.
Amen.
And so yeah, it was a nice webinar. Thank you for sharing. It's a nice way of starting my day. So
I hope you have a beautiful day. Christy, do you have anything to say?
No, I'm just listening to everything.
Okay.
But I definitely think that other, was it Alina or whatever her
Mhm.
name was? Her sister sounds kind of like she has some trapped emotions from childhood, maybe.
Mhm.
Because I know I'm a twin personally, fraternal though. So I get her life kind of in growing up with a twin and all of that. And there's always a lot of, um, you always look at the other twin and you compare yourself. That's what it's like for comparison. You grow up comparing yourself in every way of life, kind of. And it's really a hard way to live.
Yeah, it is.
So I feel like she probably at some young age felt like the parents favored you over her, and
Yeah.
that kind of just sunk in, and she just needs to kind of find that and release it.
Mhm.
Absolutely. I think you're right.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Thank you, Christy.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for sharing. Dave, you have anything to share? If not, that's cool. Jeff, do you have anything to share? Okay. Can we just all just bow our heads and we just ask for the grace of the divine to come in? We thank you for allowing us to bring this webinar forward to you, through you. And we ask that each one is touched and graced by your divine grace and humility. We thank you for us all being here together. We ask you to help us build this community. And we pray and bless you and bless each soul here in Father's name. Amen. Thank you, everybody.